Saturday night brings us a very surprising ACC top 20 matchup as number 18 Pittsburgh travels to take on one of the newcomers in the conference, number 20 SMU, in a battle between two teams that are undefeated in conference play. So who's going to keep their ACC title hopes and maybe college football playoff hopes alive? That's what we're here to break down today. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, ready to break down Pittsburgh and SMU. Who would have thought this would be one of the best games in the month of November back in the preseason? Yet here we are. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home of those exclusive expert picks, some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers, not just this year, but each of the last 6 years as well. So if you want to win big with us, if you want a subscription that lasts a full year, 365 days, best customer service around, one of the lowest prices in the country, all these things that these other handicappers cannot give you, we're going to give you, and we want you to take advantage of it and join our team today. Again, the link for that down in the description below over on thegridironexpert.com. So let's take a look at this game, guys. Pittsburgh is not just undefeated in ACC play, they're undefeated as a whole. The Panthers 7-0, a great bounce-back season for them under Pat Narduzzi. SMU, it didn't look like the Mustangs were going to be much of anything this year. I had them as a dark horse in the ACC to start the year, and then we saw them struggle against Nevada. They lose at home to BYU, and it's like, they're going to be in big trouble. And then they got hot. They're on a massive winning streak, 7-1 right now, finding themselves in the top 20. This is huge, not just when it comes to the conference standings. We got Miami, Clemson, Pittsburgh, SMU, all unbeaten in conference play, but maybe huge for the playoff as well. It's a 12-team playoff now. These two teams can still find their way in there. There's no doubt about that. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball, though. And we'll start with Pittsburgh, the road team here. The big question mark entering this game is, will their star quarterback, Eli Holston, will he play? He got hurt last week towards the end of that Syracuse game. Pat Narduzzi said we're just going to wait and see. He's a guy that really doesn't like to share much on injuries, but share many injury updates. Some say that's a competitive advantage. I think it's a load of crap. I hate it when coaches do that, but to each their own. He says we're going to wait and see. So we're going to wait and see if Holston, the guy who's thrown for over 1,800 yards, 17 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions, a guy who's averaging over 280 passing yards per game, we're going to wait and see if he's going to be able to lead the Pittsburgh offense onto the field for one of the biggest games of their entire season. If he cannot go, Nate Yarnell is going to be this quarterback. And look, he's not your average backup quarterback, right? He's seen plenty of playing experience over the last few years, really throughout his entire career with the Panthers. He is 17 for 26 for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns this year, but last year, a little bit more playing experience, 41 of 62, 595 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. So he's seen the field plenty of times. He's made the most of his opportunities, has played very well, takes great care of the football, relatively accurate quarterback. So even if Holston can't play, it's not the end of the world for the Panthers. I don't believe that at all. They also have a very solid rushing attack. Desmond Reed, 541 yards, 3 touchdowns on the year. The Panthers were averaging 160.9 rushing yards per game. They're averaging nearly 41 points per game this season. You don't want to see the Panthers become a one-dimensional offense. It's not going to work well for them, especially in a hostile road environment with a game of this magnitude. But I do believe the rushing attack can make up for maybe a little bit lesser of a passing attack if Holston is unable to go. When you take a look at SMU, their offense is good, and we talked about how at the beginning of the year they struggled against Nevada. They lost at home to BYU. We said, man, they're going to struggle this year. Well, that was with Preston Stone at quarterback. Then they switched to Kevin Jennings, and everything changed. He gave this team the offensive spark they needed and made this team look like the offensive team we thought they'd be back in the preseason. The Mustangs are averaging over 440 yards per game this season, 242 through the air, 201 on the ground, a very balanced rushing attack, very balanced offensive attack as a whole. But, like Pittsburgh, Kevin Jennings isn't 100% in this game either. Rhett Lashley's saying we're going to kind of wait and see, essentially. He's not 100%. It's kind of questionable. We're hoping to get him out there. For what it's worth, I do believe both of these quarterbacks will play. I do believe Pittsburgh will have their starter. I do believe SMU will have their starter. But if Jennings cannot go, they will turn to Preston Stone, who was the starter for all of last year before getting hurt, was the starter at the beginning of this season before struggling so badly that they had to pull him for Jennings. That's not a bad backup option either if you're the Mustangs. Guy has tons of starting experience and, again, was your starter entering this year before he just struggled mightily. But here's the thing. Whether it's Jennings, whether it's Stone, I do believe it's going to be Jennings, this offensive stats, this hype around the offense, is not going to matter if SMU cannot find a way to cut down on the turnovers. What we saw last week against Duke was horrendous. They were able to win by 1 point in overtime against the Blue Devils, but committed 6 turnovers in that game. Somehow found a way to win despite committing 6 turnovers and not even getting one of their own. 6 turnovers, they found a way to win. 3 of those 6, though, were interceptions from Kevin Jennings. So they've got to find a way to cut down on that, make better decisions, especially against a strong Pittsburgh defense. But overall, SMU is lighting things up. They've had at least 466 yards of offense in each of their last 4 games. That's a pretty impressive mark. I expect them to stay hot, but can they reach that mark? Can they put up enough points against this very stingy Pittsburgh defense that is coming off a historic performance last week where they had 5 interceptions, 3 of those returned for pick sixes against Syracuse? After that performance, you wouldn't know that the Panthers actually have one of the worst secondaries in the country, a secondary that ranks 112th nationally. 5 interceptions, 3 of those returned for pick sixes in their blowout win over Syracuse, and the Orange had the, number 2 passing attack in the country at the time. Here's the thing. SMU's not going to commit 6 turnovers again like they had last week. Pittsburgh's not going to have 5 interceptions and 3 pick sixes again. Both those things were anomalies for both of these teams. But that's not to say that SMU's not going to make some mistakes, and that's not to say that Pittsburgh doesn't have a good defense. The Panthers traditionally do have a strong defense under Pat Narduzzi, and I expect that to be the case, and has been the case once again now in 2024. Secondary still has a lot left to be desired, but they will force a turnover or 2. The rushing defense has been phenomenal. The Panthers ranking 9th in the country in stopping the run, allowing just 93.9 rushing yards per game. So don't go out there and expect SMU's Brashard Smith to have a big day. Don't expect this SMU offense that's rushing for over 200 yards per game to go out there and have a big day. I expect this to be a game where if SMU wants to win, they're going to have to air it out, which means Kevin Jennings or Preston Stone, again, I believe it will be Jennings, is going to have to take much better care of the football. He's going to have great pocket awareness. He's going to have to make sure he doesn't repeat what Kyle McCord and Syracuse did last week and just gift Pittsburgh all of these turnovers that they either turn into points themselves or set up in their offense in a very good way for them to convert a few plays later. So they're going to have to take a very good, careful job of the ball. SMU, look, this team is no stranger to turnovers defensively. They are phenomenal at creating turnovers. So good, in fact, that they rank in the top 10 when it comes to interceptions. SMU, 12 interceptions forced this year. They have forced 17 turnovers as a whole. 12 of those have been interceptions, which is insanely impressive and makes this Pittsburgh quarterback situation all the more interesting. Eli Holston, as we know, takes very good care of the football, only 5 interceptions on the year. Nate Yarnell, he's got talent. He takes good care of the football from the time we've seen him, but in a hostile environment against this good defense in a game of this magnitude, is he going to get rattled by the big moments, rattled by the bright lights, and commit a handful of turnovers to this Mustang secondary that loves to take the ball away? That's a storyline you've got to watch out for, and something we may not even know about, the quarterback situation at least, until Saturday morning, or right before kickoff even. Who knows? So something to monitor there if you're SMU in this defense. But they've been phenomenal in the secondary in terms of creating turnovers. Not so great when it comes to allowing yards. Kind of similar to Pittsburgh here, right? Great with turnovers, not a lot with yards. SMU gave up 295 passing yards to Duke, 329 to Louisville, 415 to TCU. Again, if you are SMU, you've got to find a way, whoever's under center, to rattle that quarterback, to not allow that many yards, to not allow that many big-time explosive plays. They've got to find a way to create negative plays, create pressure, and get turnovers. I will say this. Like Pittsburgh, the Mustangs have done a phenomenal job in terms of stopping the run. They've allowed over 100 rushing yards just once in their last 5 games. So I really don't expect Pittsburgh to have a great day on the ground. I don't expect SMU to have a great day on the ground. This is a game that is simply going to be determined by quarterback play. Both quarterbacks are banged up. We don't exactly know what the situation is going to be on Saturday. All the more reason this is such a very intriguing and exciting game. Intriguing because it's 2 teams that typically aren't this good. 2 teams that are at the top of the ACC standings, which no one really saw coming at the beginning of the year. 2 teams that, to me, are very, very similar across the board. Both explosive offenses, both struggle in the secondary, both pretty solid up front in terms of stopping the run. This is a very evenly matched game in my eyes. But ultimately, I'm going to have to go with SMU to win this game. I'm going to pick the Mustangs to win the game at home and give Pittsburgh not just their first conference loss of the year, but their first loss overall for the entire season. Look, as we said earlier, What we saw out of SMU will not be replicated this week. What we saw from SMU last week will not be replicated this week. What we saw from Pittsburgh last week will not be replicated this week. It's an entirely new week, entirely new game, entirely new strategies for both these programs. We're not going to see a 5-pick day for Pittsburgh. We're not going to see a 6-turnover day for SMU. It's just simply not going to happen. I like the Mustangs at home. I think they have the offensive advantage as a whole, especially if Kevin Jennings plays and Eli Holston for Pittsburgh does not. I think their defense rises to the occasion. They can make this Pittsburgh offense one-dimensional. The Panthers will struggle a little bit there. This game will be decided by one possession. I do believe that. I think it's going to be a very close game that comes down to the wire. Never underestimate the Panthers and Pat Narduzzi. But give me Rhett Latchley and the Mustangs to defend their home turf. They're hot right now. They're winning games. They're finding ways to win them. Whether it's close, whether it's blowout fashion, whether it's defensive-driven, offensive-driven, they're finding ways to win. And I think they find another way to win this Saturday. SMU improves to 8-1, remains unbeaten in ACC play in their first year in the conference. Pittsburgh takes their first loss of the year as this conference race within the ACC will get wilder and wilder and closer as we continue to wrap up the regular season. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home of those exclusive expert picks, some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers, not just this year, but each of the last 6 years. So if you want to win big with us for one of the lowest prices in the country, this is the place for you. Go sign up, become a member of our GE Nation, join our team today, again, over on thegridironexpert.com. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.